Has anyone thought about the problem that there's little emphasis on Asian lives in America? Some will probably say that declaring Asian lives matter is creating something from nothing because Asian lives are not put at risk through the justice system. However, the hidden truth behind the reason we do not say Asian lives matter is perhaps Asian voices are stifled by the model minority myth, and the stereotypes to Asians can be freely laughed at, that people actually see them not as racism but as funny jokes. July 2016, Philando Castile got shot in Vulcan Heights, Minnesota, during a regular traffic stop. The killer was Peter Liang, a Chinese officer, who was later charged with 15 years in prison. Immediately reacting to the shooting, many Asian Americans walked on the streets to ask for leniency for Liang. The argument they had was reasonable. If white officers were going unpunished for killing black people, why should an Asian cop have to pay the price? Historically, racism against Chinese can be traced back to California gold rush. In the 1860s, Chinese immigrants came to do mining, and many of them stayed in America, working in transcontinental railroads. When the economy wasn't doing good in the 1870s, white workers started attacking Chinese workers to release their anxiety. The Working Men's Party was formed and successfully rallied white workers under the name of getting Chinese out of the states. At the same time, in 1882, Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, which represented the endemic anti-Chinese racism in early American national culture. Moving to the 20th century, the juvenile delinquency panic in the 1950s again pushed Chinese Americans to a new stage, where they were recognized as the model minority. Since people were scared by how the youth got themselves into troubles, leaders from Chinatown started to create stories about the obedience of Chinese children to their parents and their extraordinary achievements academically. This idea of Chinese children being good children circulated the nation overwhelmingly, which later brought stereotypes to Chinese Americans. Protests against injustice against Asians really take place, and some of the Asian communities would rather to show up in a Black Lives Matter rally than to rally for their own race. One explanation for this is that the discussion about racism in the United States has been so dominated by injustice against African Americans that little room is left for other minorities. Apparently, social medias have to do better in making voices not only for blacks but also for Asians. In addition to this, even though Asian community generated voices against the racism they face, the influence they made wasn't enough for the majority to pay attention to. Statistically, only 2.4% of the Congress members are Asian American, despite composing 5.8% of the total population. And specifically, for Chinese Americans, their inactivity in politics comes from the Chinese value that professional success is more important than political success. However, for all the Asians in America, to make us visible, we have to have our opinion heard, and we have to participate in the political system. Statistics show that Asian Americans had the lowest voting rate in 2016 among other racial groups. Language barrier is one of the reasons that Asian Americans perform poorly in voting. According to U.S. Census Bureau data, 1 in 3 Asian Americans speak limited English. On the other hand, this barrier can be easily eliminated if accurate translation is provided on ballots in all states. From 2000 to 2010, more and more Asian Americans are realizing the importance of voting participation, that Asians become the fastest growing racial group among voters. If they can keep this trend, a high voter turnout rate combined with a rapidly growing population will make issues related to Asian Americans unneglectable. Although taking up 5% of the whole population in the US, Asians of different heritages in America are not united and being recognized by each other. For instance, some Chinese Americans use Qing to identify their solidarity, nationality, and pride. Furthermore, most of the Chinese Americans, rather than recognize other Asians as brothers, see Japanese Asians, Korean Asians, and Indian Asians as competitors both in schools and workplaces. Therefore, if Asian Americans want to improve their lives, rising up against voices against their rights should be done in privilege. Also, to eliminate stereotypes towards Asians, social medias and movie companies should stop making Asian characters, especially Asian males, look nerdy or sexual. In so doing, at least younger generations won't be influenced at an early age of what Asian males are like, and they will treat Asians later in their lives without prejudice.